I traveled to the rocket base as soon as I heard the big man was awake. When I got there, Skyfire sure was awake, but he was still pretty well damaged. As he sat there, I asked him, what the hell happened? How'd he get so messed up? I know he took a hit when I was there, but man, he looked like shit. He told us that the Seekers were more than a little upset that me and Slipstream had got away. So ticked off that they actually hunted down Skyfire. And unfortunately, due to his injuries, Skyfire was moving pretty slow. Even though he simply stated how he was not part of any faction, they decided to simply shoot him down, and when he crashed, they left him for dead for the scavengers to take. He was too hurt and too low on energy to change forms, and he figured he was dead as stasis lock started to take him. I offered him some of my blood that would help him repair a lot faster, more than just chowing down on a bunch of crystals and cubes. He hesitantly accepted it, as he worries about the health and welfare of me. I explained, I've done this before, and the results are promising. I end up having to give him a fairly large amount considering his size. I mean, he's even large for one of the standard bots that's out there. Looking at us, seriously, I'm about the size of his frickin' nose. Unfortunately, as I get woozy, I immediately sit down and go, okay, now I need to eat something. It would still be a few weeks before Skyfire was fully healed enough to do anything, and we needed him at 100% before we could get the plan into motion. I kept going over the primary plan with everybody. That was, first, cause a major distraction on the far side of the city, and because we have so many that we need to get out, it's going to be big distraction. We have to wait a minute, maybe two, for all the occupants to be focused on the distraction and pull away from the side of the city we're going to be landing at. At that point, with Skyfire's help, he can force a landing and load up all those who are too damaged or simply too slow to make the run. Skyfire will be fully willing to help. Actually, he's looking forward to it because, well, let's face it, not just the Seekers, but it turns out that both factions had taken a shot at him after they found out what happened. So he was more in the issue of saying, you know what, fuck these guys. Once fully loaded, Skyfire was to take off as fast as he could. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring in any air support. It's going to be bad enough with his bulbous butt flying around. If they see any of us, they'll be alerted and the whole plan goes to shit. So since we're too high a risk of detection, he's going to have to do it alone. However, he will be bringing a couple heavy lifters just in case. While they're getting loaded, all the fast ground-based vehicles will have to make a run for it, and they're going to have to book it just as fast as they can. No altered course, just go as fast as they can. Try to make as much distance as much as possible. When Skyfire takes off, he's actually going to be coming in at the same direction. So his jet wash, along with all the vehicles, are going to be able to put up one hell of a smoke screen. And this should be able to cover their retreat. Once they arrive, we spin up the teleporter, give whatever medical we can, grab all the supplies we can, and hopefully we're gone by the time anybody arrives. And where are we going? Well, that's simple. We only have one destination. Earth. As we plan this and go over it again and again and again, everybody knows what's at stake. Everybody continues to prepare the city. If things don't go according to plan, we're going to need our backup plans. There's always at least 4. Though with everybody being so confident in the primary plan, they wonder if the weapons that I insisted on are going to be needed at all. They look at me with the same question, and I simply give the same answer. I sure as hell hope not. But it's better to have and not need than need and not have, I'll tell you that. I learned that lesson more than once. A few of them that knew me from when I was actually stuck on this planet, way back in the day, they know exactly what I was talking about, and they simply grinned in their own way. Some of them sparkled their eyes. Others who weren't there looked at everyone else like, why does that make sense? I don't get it. They would always say, we'll tell you later. As our own D-Day gets closer and closer, everything is checked, then double-checked, then triple-checked, again and again. And occasionally, unfortunately, as we're checking, we have to hide. We have to hide and wait. These scavengers that seem to be made of junk are very easy to spot coming, but difficult to deal with, especially with how many of them there are. They roll in, and we never know how long we have to wait, sitting there in powered down mode, sometimes in the basements or sub-basements or triple sub-basements of one of these buildings, just waiting there in complete darkness, waiting for these guys to leave. When they're on the surface, they also make an unholy mess of everything. At that point, as I hear them ripping things open, looking for anything they can consume, I appreciate the advice. You see, a few actually came up with the idea of only have the power conduits buried as deep as they possibly can. This takes a lot longer to actually do, but I realize that if these Junka, whatever the hell they are, find them, then we're going to be in trouble because they're going to start ripping buildings apart and we won't be able to hide at all. They'll tear this entire city to pieces. When we heard the commotion up on the surface, we actually freaked out. We thought they had found a way to detect us or something. Everybody got nervous. In fact, there was a certain little female bot who clenched my arm so much I thought she was going to strain my linkage completely off. Come to find out, those Junkers found a few drops from one of our own that was an accident I hadn't been aware of. And it turns out the few drops on the street were enough to make these things freak out, dive forward and start ripping up the street itself and just consuming what little bit was there. Along with the fact that if one decided to consume something, it seemed as like another Junker would try to actually go in after it, and they would tear each other apart. This meant that there was going to be other bodies and parts left up there, left in pieces, that we would actually have to work around. We couldn't move them. We had to leave them there because if everything looked clean, somebody would know that we're around or someone is around. So we have to leave everything there, make it look like shit, basic camouflage. We worried that the Junkers would continue and on to the rocket base. We worried because Skyfire was still there and he was too damaged to actually fly still. Thankfully, these junk freaks seemed to avoid the rocket base for some reason. We didn't know why, but honestly, we didn't really give a shit. A few suggested that we should all move over there, but I reminded them with this many personnel, there's not enough room. Especially if we have to hunker down with a large group, we need the space. We wait still for over a Cybertronian day before these road warrior wannabes finally leave. As they do, we wait just a little bit longer before we scout out. And thankfully, when the scouts return, they tell us that the coast is clear. After that, we just get back to business and continue to repair. As we're getting close to D-Day, crystals are mined and refined into cubes as fast as we possibly can. We do this because once it's refined into cubes, it's basically turning this raw mineral into an extremely dense food source, which is quite tasty. It isn't long after the bikers leave that Skyfire is actually seen putting himself through his paces. Though janky is all hell, it's going to still be a few more days before he gets to 100%. But as soon as he is good to go, he comes and he tells us. And all I can think of is, good. Now we can begin. On the day the mission began, I remember thinking, I hate waiting. I put Downshift in charge of the ground unit, and he's been able to smuggle himself inside that city multiple times, so he knows what he's doing. He knows exactly who to talk to and how to get everything ready. Skyfire himself knows exactly what to do and where to go, even though he's mostly just going to be on standby until he sees the signal. I personally was sitting there next to the monitors, and we were getting intermittent feeds as the distraction started. On the image, we saw an energy plant rupture, spilling liquid energy across the streets, and as everyone ran over to drink up some of it, the one next to it exploded in a cataclysmic explosion, shaking the entire city and even making the screen go black. This target was chosen because every bot in this city relies on it and will do anything to stop a chain reaction, because if that happens, well, they're not going to be getting fed all that much. As the screen came back on, we saw a massive blue and green flash, as that same color was a mushroom cloud that filled the sky. Then the image turned to Skyfire as he flies as fast as he can towards the city. As he lands, he locks his brakes and slides to a stop. I all of a sudden cringe at the idea, along with all the rest of our flyers, as it seems as though he's taxiing into position, but in actuality, he's trying to grab a hold of the ground as he's sliding into place. All we can think is, this has to hurt. To us, doing this is about as bad as sliding down a metal slide in stocking feet at noon in mid-August. So yeah, it's gonna sting a bit. I look over to another monitor and I can see a few seconds of the damaged bots being loaded. Many of them carried, some of them limping in, others seems like they're being dragged. Then I look to another screen and I can see the fast bots immediately running out, changing into their vehicle forms and racing away. Quite literally. As it turns out, they made a game of it to see who could get there first. Let's just say you didn't want to be last. Skyfire is already moving as the call, "Last man," is given, and that means the last bot is inside. He closes the bay as he lifts off, and I'm sure everyone inside shifted towards the back with the amount of thrust he was giving. Instantly, he was going supersonic. I've only seen this one other time, and that's with an F-15 back on Earth. It's actually scary to watch something that big move that quick. With this, I watched and I prayed we got away clean. But you know what they say about the best laid plans. Skyfire, I could see, overtook the ground vehicles and headed straight towards us, and sure enough, the clouds were so much that I don't think anybody could see through it. We already prepared for him to land. We made sure there was a landing strip right there, and he would end up right in the middle of town, provided he remembered to fold his wing back. We had equipment pre-positioned as everybody was trying to keep their minds off what was happening on the mission. Then the word went out. "Attention all personnel! Incoming wounded!" And they all raced to their positions. Thus, we also received a distress call. This is something I didn't want to hear. "Seekers, 6 o'clock, high, coming fast." All I could think of in that moment is, well, the primary plan went to shit. Time for the alternate plan to get into effect. All of us that are fixed wings immediately ran out, took to the skies, and pushed ourselves to the absolute limit in order to intercept them. At this speed and the fact that they were coming towards us, it wasn't going to take too long. However, I heard Slipstream turn over to one of our more recon-based friends and said, "Eyebolt, can you get a fix on the enemy location?" As I looked forward, I saw in the distance. I said, "Forget the radar, here they come." "All right, guys, let them have it." With that, we drive towards a seeker formation, firing everything we can at once, and we drive right into their formation with reckless abandon, going full cyclic rate and blasting right down into their faces. Thankfully, there was only 7 seekers at that point, so we had a chance to drive them away. The seekers, not being total morons, immediately disengaged, realizing that they were completely outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and outmatched. Our formations moved in ways that actually surprised them, I'm sure, because they simply cranked themselves up, flipped over, and were trying to get the hell away from us. I looked over and could see our ground forces getting more and more distance by the second. It seems as though they had definitely put some NOS in the tank now, because they were definitely moving. Honestly, they must have been moving several hundred miles an hour, and I started to wonder, holy crap, they're not going to have any paint by the time they get anywhere. Then again, it's not exactly paint. We make sure to keep the Seekers back as far as possible as the fast cars begin to disappear over the horizon. That's when we see the dots and we see on our sensors that there's another group coming in. I turn and ask, how many? And Eyebolt says, I don't know, looks like all of them, sir. Then I look forward as far as I can and I see who's taking point. I say, oh shit. Everybody asks me, what's wrong? I say, Starscream von Richthofen. Slipstream says, what? I say, never mind. This is Sierra 6 to all units. Do not fight. Just run. And with that, we turn and again crank ourselves to the absolute limits. It's basically like running at full sprint no matter what. Cutting the limiter off on your muscles and just keep going. As we fly, I think we still have time. We can make the plan work. That's when I receive a call. Sierra 6, this is Talk 1. Multiple contacts coming in from the opposite direction. I ask, is it the same faction? Negative, he says. Looks like the secret's out. They're heading straight towards us. ETA 4 minutes. I think to myself that our ground forces will be getting to the city just about the same time. However, this means that the alternate plan has also gone to shit. Time for the contingency plan. I respond, confirmed. No point in playing it quiet. Not anymore. Transform the city and prepare for assault. The word is out. Battle stations. We still push ourselves as the city comes into view, and as it does, the silhouette doesn't even look like our city anymore. I can see turrets that have sprung out of everywhere. Defense lines can be seen from the air and the ground. Smoke from the artillery I insisted they install and train on can be seen. The city of Venia is now nothing more than a battle station. And I think about the past. I think about what we had said about them building a city on Earth that changed into a battle station, and the irony was not lost on me. As me and the rest of the flying bots are reaching the city, the Red faction on the opposite side, their air forces, had already begun engaging our defenses. I land on the main citadel and check the status immediately. Skyfire is almost done offloading the wounded. When he's done, he's told to take off. I told him straight to his face, once this is done, we're square. He agreed with me on this, but I didn't want him getting caught up in this. He's helped us out so much, and I can't thank him enough. Unfortunately, we're getting flanked on both sides, and unfortunately, we can tell that the motorcycles are being drawn into the fighting as well. They're farther out, but they sure are coming. And now, we're going to be surrounded very, very soon. I ask everybody in the talk, can we keep them back until we can evacuate? Can we keep them out long enough? I just need to know that. Dirt Demon looks across the monitors and says, only if we leave right now. We activate the teleporter and of course set it to Earth, but it's going to take a couple of minutes for it to fully spin up. That's when I step outside and join the rest of the flyers as we do hot laps around, basically in a defensive ring. Myself and the other flying bots are going back and forth, making sure that we can completely control the air, at least around and above this city. And that's when we see something horrible. The Purple faction flyers have already begun to land around the transporter. We can't risk damaging the device, so we can't get a good angle shooting them off. But surprisingly, they're not advancing. I think about it for a moment and I go, Starscream, you evil fucking genius. He's there, lands in front of it, and stands defiant next to the teleportation ring. Once it's activated, it only goes one way, so it's not like anything's going to come out at him. But this tactical genius knows that this is our best way of escaping, and now he controls access to it. As we continue to make our hot laps, a new flyer that we had just liberated named Grunbarrel actually yells to me, "Now what do we do?" Without yelling, I simply say, "Son, you should know I always got a card to play." Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 11 of the story, and let's see who gets all the references in the story. And now, before I go, I need to send out some big old thank yous to a few of my supporters, and those will be Prozac and Pancakes, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, Erica Gem, Guardian Sage, MTF Guard, and Julius Boone. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, ejecting.